My head throbbed with each beep of the heart monitor. The antiseptic smell of the hospital room burned my nostrils as I tried to focus on the ceiling tiles. Anything to distract from the dull ache radiating through my abdomen. The doctors had told me the surgery went well, but the pain medication made everything foggy, like looking through frosted glass. "Ms. Walsh? How are you feeling today?" A nurse with kind eyes and tired hands checked my IV. Her badge read, Marissa, though I'd seen 3 different nurses since waking up. "Like I've been hit by a truck," I murmured, my voice raspy from the breathing tube they'd removed. "When can I go home?" Marissa's smile faltered. "The doctor will be in shortly to discuss that. You had quite a serious procedure." The accident replayed in fragments. Shattered glass, the metallic taste of blood, the screech of tires. I'd been crossing the street after my late shift at the Kingsley Hotel when headlights flooded my vision. I didn't even have time to scream. What Marissa wasn't saying hovered in the air between us. I had no insurance. The emergency surgery that saved my life would cost more than I could earn in 5 years at my housekeeping job. Another debt to add to the mountain crushing me since Dad died, leaving me with nothing but his medical bills and a ramshackle house I could barely maintain. "There's something else," Marissa said, checking my chart with too much concentration. "Someone's been asking about you. A man. Very insistent. Security had to intervene yesterday. My heart monitor betrayed my spike of fear." "What man?" "I don't know any men who would—" "He wouldn't give his name, just left his card for when you wake up." She hesitated, then pulled a heavy cream-colored business card from her pocket. "I'm not supposed to do this, but he seemed to know things about your condition that aren't public. Said he's covering your medical expenses." The card was blank except for a phone number embossed in matte black. No name, no company. "I don't understand," I whispered, turning the card over. This must be a mistake. That's what I thought. "But Ms. Walsh," Marissa lowered her voice, "I checked. Your bills have been paid. All of them." My fingers trembled around the card. "That's impossible. It must be tens of thousands of dollars." "More." Her gaze darted to the door. "I shouldn't tell you this, but he's been calling every hour for updates. The hospital administrator is personally taking his calls now." A knock at the door made us both jump. Dr. Chen entered, his expression unreadable behind his surgical mask. "Ms. Walsh, good to see you awake. How's the pain, scale of 1 to 10? 6, I lied. It was closer to 8, but I didn't want more medication clouding my thoughts. He nodded, making notes in my chart. "The impact damaged your spleen and caused internal bleeding. We had to remove it, but you'll be able to live a normal life. You also had a concussion and 3 broken ribs. You're lucky to be alive." Lucky wasn't the word I would have chosen. Alone, in debt, and now missing an organ seemed the opposite of lucky. "When can I leave? I need to get back to work." The thought of missing shifts made my stomach clench. I was already behind on rent. "That's what I wanted to discuss." Dr. Chen's brow furrowed. "Typically, I'd keep you for at least another week, followed by significant home care. But given your financial situation, we were preparing discharge paperwork for tomorrow." "Were?" I caught the past tense. "Your benefactor has requested you receive the full recommended treatment, including private duty nursing at home afterward." The monitor betrayed my racing heart again. "I don't have a benefactor. There's been a mistake." "The administrator assures me there's no mistake, Ms. Walsh. The gentleman was quite specific about your care." He cleared his throat. "He'll be visiting this evening." My mouth went dry. "I don't want to see him. I don't know who he is." Dr. Chen and Marissa exchanged glances. "I'll see what I can do," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Rest now. We'll run some tests this afternoon." After they left, I stared at the card, the embossed number catching the harsh fluorescent light. Who would pay a fortune for a stranger's medical bills? What did they want in return? I must have drifted to sleep, because when I opened my eyes, the golden light of sunset streamed through the blinds. The room smelled different. A subtle cologne had displaced the antiseptic scent, expensive and understated, notes of cedar and something darker. I wasn't alone. A man stood by the window, his back to me. Tall, broad-shouldered, in a tailored black suit that probably cost more than my car. His dark hair was cut short, precise. One hand was tucked into his pocket, the other holding a phone to his ear. He spoke too quietly for me to hear, but the controlled intensity in his posture made my skin prickle. I should have called for help, pressed the nurse's button, made any sound, but something held me frozen, watching. He ended his call and must have sensed my gaze. Without turning, he said, "You're awake." His voice was deep, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. When he turned, the dying sunlight cast half his face in shadow. He couldn't have been much over 40, with features that belonged on a Roman coin, strong jaw, straight nose, eyes so dark they appeared black in the dimming light. Handsome, but in a severe way that spoke of authority rather than warmth. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice embarrassingly weak. He approached with measured steps, stopping at the foot of my bed. "My name is Alessio Russo, and you are Ellie Walsh, 27, no living relatives, employed at the Kingsley for 4 years, 3 months. His eyes never left mine. "You were hit by a drunk driver who fled the scene. My driver witnessed the accident." My mouth opened, but no words came. How did he know these details, and why did his name send a chill down my spine? I'd never met him, but something about Alessio Russo felt familiar, like a warning I'd heard but forgotten. "Why would you pay my medical bills?" I finally asked. "The right question is why wouldn't the driver stop?" he countered, his expression unchanged. A statement, not a question. Outside my door, I noticed a large shadow, a man standing guard. Inside, with this stranger knowing everything about me, I felt suddenly, terribly vulnerable. "I don't understand what you want from me," I whispered. Russo studied me with unnerving focus. "The driver works for someone I know." "Someone who didn't realize you were under my protection." "Your protection?" I echoed. "I don't even know you." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "No, but I know you, Eleanor. No one called me Eleanor except my father." My heart monitor betrayed me again, beeping faster. "How do you— Your father spoke of you often." The room seemed to tilt. "You knew my father?" Russo moved closer, and I caught a better look at his face. A thin scar ran from his temple to his jaw on the right side, nearly invisible unless the light caught it just so. His eyes weren't black after all, but a brown so dark they appeared bottomless. Thomas Walsh saved my life once. I never had the chance to repay him before his passing. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. Now, I find his daughter nearly killed by an associate of my enemy. My father had been a security consultant for various companies before his illness. He never discussed his work, but sometimes came home with haunted eyes and would sit in silence for hours. Was this connected? "What do you mean, your enemy?" I asked, a chill spreading through me. Russo checked his watch. Platinum. Understated, but obviously expensive. "The doctor says you'll need several weeks of recovery. I've arranged for you to recuperate at one of my properties. Safer than your current residence." "I'm not going anywhere with you," I said, trying to sound firm despite my racing heart. "I appreciate your help with the bills, but the man who ordered the hit and run knows you survived." His tone remained conversational. "Victor Kane doesn't leave loose ends, even ones created by accident." Victor Kane. The name sent another shock of recognition through me, though I couldn't place why. Something my father had mentioned? A news story? "Hit and run?" "You make it sound deliberate," I said, trying to process his words. "It was an accident. The driver was drunk. Eleanor." The way he said my name made me still. "There are no accidents in my world, only messages. The driver targeted you specifically, thinking you were connected to me. A mistake that will cost him." The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. Who was this man? "I'm not going anywhere with you," I repeated, reaching for the nurse call button. Russo didn't try to stop me. "You have 12 hours to decide. By then, Kane will have confirmed you're alive and send someone to finish the job. Hospital security won't stop them." My finger hovered over the button. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm trying to save your life." Something flickered in his eyes. Frustration, perhaps. "Your father would expect no less of me." "My father has been dead for 18 months, I said, my voice breaking. "If you were such good friends, where were you when we lost everything to his medical debts? Where were you at his funeral?" A muscle in his jaw tightened. I was dealing with complications in Naples. By the time I learned of his passing, you had already disappeared from your previous address. It took time to locate you. You've been looking for me. The thought was unsettling. I made a promise to Thomas. Russo moved to the side of my bed, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. Not overpowering, but distinctly masculine. I intend to keep it. My heart thundered against my broken ribs. What promise? He reached out and I flinched, but he only adjusted my blanket where it had slipped. To protect his daughter if anything happened to him. His voice was quiet. I'm a man of my word, Eleanor, even when it's inconvenient. Before I could respond, his phone vibrated. He checked the screen, his expression hardening. My men will remain outside your door tonight. Tomorrow morning, you'll be discharged into my care, or you'll be on your own. He turned to leave. For Thomas's sake, I hope you make the right choice. Wait, I called, desperation overriding my fear. At least tell me who you really are, what you do. Russo paused at the door, his profile sharp against the hallway light. For a moment, he seemed to consider his answer. I'm the man Victor Kane has been trying to destroy for a decade. His eyes met mine one last time. And the only person standing between you and the same fate that claimed your father. The door closed behind him, leaving me alone with the steady beep of the monitor and the horrifying implication of his words. My father hadn't died of cancer. He'd been murdered. Sleep eluded me that night. Every shadow at my door made me flinch. Every footstep in the hallway sent my heart racing. The guard Russo had stationed outside, a broad-shouldered man with a military haircut and watchful eyes, checked on me hourly. He never spoke, just surveyed the room with clinical efficiency before returning to his post. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, mixing with the constant pain of my injuries. The sunrise painted my sterile room in shades of pink and gold, a jarring contrast to the darkness of my thoughts. Doctor. Chen arrived early, accompanied by a hospital administrator, whose nervous smile didn't reach her eyes. Ms. Walsh, the administrator began, clutching a folder to her chest. We've prepared your discharge papers. Mr. Russo's private medical team will arrive at 9 to transport you. My mouth went dry. I haven't agreed to go with him. Dr. Chen and the administrator exchanged glances. Perhaps I wasn't clear, the administrator said, lowering her voice. Mr. Russo has made arrangements that the hospital board has approved. It's all been settled. The implication hung in the air. Whoever Alessio Russo was, he wielded enough power to make an entire hospital bend to his will. And if I refuse? I challenged, ignoring the twinge of pain as I sat up straighter. Dr. Chen cleared his throat. Medically speaking, I cannot discharge you without adequate care arrangements. You've suffered significant trauma. Without proper supervision, complications could be life-threatening. So I'm trapped, I whispered. You're being offered the best possible care. The administrator corrected, her smile brittle. Many would consider it fortunate. Fortune had nothing to do with it. This was calculation, a debt being called in that I never knew existed. After they left, Marissa helped me shower and change into clean clothes that had appeared mysteriously, soft gray lounge pants, and a matching top that fit perfectly. The fact that someone knew my size was another unsettling piece of the puzzle. Do you know who he is? I asked as she helped me back to bed. Russo? Marissa hesitated, checking that the door was closed. Not exactly, but everyone's talking. One of the security guards recognized him. She lowered her voice to barely a whisper. They say he runs half the import business on the East Coast, the kind that doesn't appear in official records. My stomach dropped. Import business. A euphemism for smuggling, drugs, weapons? He's dangerous, isn't he? I already knew the answer. The kind of man who gets what he wants, she replied carefully. But he's kept you safe all night. And those men outside. She shook her head. They're professionals, military or ex-law enforcement. At precisely 9 o'clock, the door opened to admit a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked dark hair, pulled into a tight bun. She wore scrubs, but carried herself with an authority that suggested she was used to giving orders, not taking them. Ms. Walsh, I'm Dr. Vivian Moretti, Mr. Russo's personal physician. Her Italian accent was pronounced, but her English perfect. "Are you ready to depart?" As if I had a choice. I nodded mutely. What followed was a blur of efficiency. Within 20 minutes, I was settled in a wheelchair, surrounded by Dr. Moretti and 2 male nurses who moved with the same vigilant awareness as Russo's guard. We bypassed the main elevators, taking a service corridor to a loading dock where a sleek black Escalade waited, windows tinted nearly opaque. The transition from wheelchair to vehicle was swift and practiced. Inside, the SUV had been modified into something resembling a mobile medical unit, with monitoring equipment and an IV stand. 40 minutes to the estate, the driver informed Dr. Moretti. Roads are clear. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of the hospital receding behind us, my last connection to normal life disappearing. "Where are we going?" I asked Dr. Moretti as she checked my vitals. "Mr. Russo's primary residence in Connecticut," she replied, not looking up from her task. "It has a fully equipped medical suite." "Does he make a habit of bringing injured strangers to his home?" "Doctor." Moretti's eyes flickered to mine. "In 15 years working for Mr. Russo, you are the first." The implication sent a shiver through me. What made me special? My father's connection? Or something else entirely? The Escalade traveled north out of the city, eventually turning onto progressively smaller roads, until we reached a wrought iron gate nestled between ancient oak trees. No sign indicated the property's owner, but the sophisticated security cameras tracking our approach spoke volumes. The gate opened silently, revealing a winding driveway that cut through manicured grounds. When the house came into view, I couldn't suppress a gasp. House was an understatement. It was an estate. A massive stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the Italian countryside. 3 stories of honey-colored stone with a terracotta roof, surrounded by meticulously landscaped gardens. "Mr. Russo acquired it 5 years ago," Dr. Moretti offered, noticing my expression. "The renovation took 2 years." We didn't approach the main entrance, but circled to a side wing with its own discreet access. 2 men in dark suits opened the vehicle doors before we'd fully stopped. Through the windows, I noticed others patrolling the grounds, their movement casual, but their attention constant. My new room was nothing like the sterile hospital environment, spacious and elegant, with cream walls, hardwood floors, and French doors that opened onto a private garden. A hospital bed had been placed near the windows, but the rest of the furniture, a sitting area with a sofa and armchairs, an antique desk, built-in bookshelves, suggested a guest suite rather than a medical facility. "Mr. Russo thought you would prefer comfort over clinical efficiency," Dr. Moretti explained, directing the nurses to transfer me to the bed. "The monitoring equipment is discreet but comprehensive." As if summoned by his name, a knock came at the door, and Alessio Russo entered. Today he wore charcoal slacks and a black cashmere sweater that somehow made him look even more imposing than the suit had. Sunlight from the windows caught the silver at his temples, the only indication of age in his otherwise youthful appearance. "Eleanor," he acknowledged with a slight nod. "How was the journey?" "Illuminating," I replied, meeting his gaze directly. "I've learned I have no say in my own care." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "You had a choice. You chose safety." "Did I? When the alternative was being left vulnerable to whoever tried to kill me?" Russo turned to Dr. Moretti. "Give us a moment." She nodded and ushered the nurses out, closing the door behind them. Russo approached, taking the chair beside my bed. Up close, in daylight, I could see the fatigue lines around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "Your father was a practical man," he said after a moment. "He understood that sometimes protection comes with constraints." "Stop talking about my father as if you knew him better than I did," I snapped, pain and exhaustion fraying my composure. Perhaps I knew a different side of him. Russo's voice remained calm. "The side that kept you safe by keeping you ignorant." I flinched as if he'd struck me. "What are you talking about?" Russo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Thomas worked for me for nearly 15 years, Eleanor. Not for various companies, as he told you." The room seemed to spin. "That's impossible. My father was a security consultant. He helped companies with their protection systems." "He was security, yes, for my organization. Russo's dark eyes held mine. Your father was my most trusted lieutenant, my right hand for over a decade. You're lying, I whispered, but doubt had already taken root. It would explain so much: Dad's secretive nature, the unexplained cash that sometimes appeared when we needed it most, the late-night phone calls in languages I didn't recognize. I never lie, Russo said simply. It's inefficient. If he worked for you, then why were we always struggling? Why did he die drowning in medical debt? A muscle in Russo's jaw tightened. Thomas kept separate accounts, money I could never trace. He wanted you to have a clean life, untouched by his association with me. When he fell ill, he refused my help. That doesn't sound like my father. No. Russo raised an eyebrow. The man who sent you to your aunt's every time business associates came to town? Who insisted you attend college 3 states away? Who never once brought his work home? Each word hit like a physical blow. All those strange inconsistencies in my childhood, the mysterious business trips, the burner phones, Dad's insistence that I never answer the door when he wasn't home, suddenly they had context. If what you're saying is true, I said slowly, then my father worked for a criminal. Russo didn't flinch at the accusation. I operate businesses outside the conventional framework of the law, yes. You're a mafia boss. The words fell between us, heavy with implication. That term is melodramatic and imprecise, he replied with a slight shrug. I prefer to think of myself as an entrepreneur with unique approaches to conflict resolution. Despite everything, a laugh escaped me, harsh and disbelieving. Is that what you call it when you have someone killed? His expression darkened. I don't discuss business specifics with civilians. Is that what I am? A civilian. You're Thomas Walsh's daughter, Russo said, as if that explained everything, which means you're my responsibility now. I don't want to be anyone's responsibility, I retorted. I want my life back. That life ended the moment Victor Kane's driver hit you. Russo stood, buttoning his suit jacket with precise movements. Whether you choose to accept it or not, you're part of this world now, Eleanor. My world. I shook my head. I want no part of whatever this is. Unfortunately, Kane has made that decision for both of us. Russo moved to the French doors, looking out at the garden. He believes harming you will wound me. That makes you a target. Why would hurting me affect you at all? I demanded. You didn't even know me until yesterday. Russo turned, his expression unreadable, because Thomas extracted a promise from me before his final mission. He knew the risks were exceptional. What promise? That if anything happened to him, I would ensure his daughter never wanted for anything. His gaze was steady. That I would protect you with the same dedication he had shown me. My father died of cancer, I said. But uncertainty colored my words. Russo's silence was answer enough. No, I whispered. The doctors said cancer was the official cause, yes. But its rapid onset and unusual progression were no coincidence. Russo's voice had softened. Thomas was investigating Kane's operations in South America. 3 weeks later, he developed symptoms. By then, it was too late. The room seemed to close in around me. Are you saying my father was poisoned? With an isotope nearly impossible to trace. Russo returned to my bedside. He knew Eleanor. In his final days, he contacted me, asked me to watch over you, but from a distance, until it was no longer possible to do so. Tears burned behind my eyes. Why didn't he tell me any of this? To protect you. Russo's hand moved as if to touch mine, then retreated. The less you knew, the safer you were. Silence settled between us, heavy with revelations I couldn't process. My father, the quiet, principled man who taught me to always tell the truth, had built his life on secrets, had worked for a man who casually discussed murder as conflict resolution, had kept me in the dark about everything. I need time, I finally said, my voice barely audible. This is too much. Russo nodded once. Rest. Dr. Moretti will check on you hourly. He moved toward the door, then paused. Your father kept a journal. I recovered it after his death. When you're stronger, perhaps you'll want to read it. After he left, I stared at the ceiling, tears streaming silently down my face. Grief I thought I'd processed months ago returned with fresh intensity. Not just for the father I'd lost, but for the father I never truly knew. Days blurred together in my gilded prison. Dr. Moretti supervised my recovery with efficient compassion, and the staff, all of whom seemed to serve dual roles as caretakers and security, anticipated my needs before I voiced them. My room became both sanctuary and cell. Beautiful but confining. Russo visited daily, usually in the evenings, sometimes just to inquire about my progress, other times staying longer to share carefully edited stories about my father. I found myself both dreading and anticipating these visits, hungry for any scrap of information about Dad, yet resentful of the source. A week into my stay, my strength had improved enough for short walks in the adjacent garden. Under Dr. Moretti's watchful eye, I ventured outside for the first time since arriving. The October air carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves, and the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the immaculate grounds. "You're healing remarkably well, Doctor," Moretti observed as I completed a slow circuit of the garden path. "Your father had the same constitution." "Resilient," I glanced at her. "You knew my father?" A shadow crossed her face. "I treated him several times over the years. Gunshot wound in 2015, broken ribs in 2018, and..." She hesitated. "During his final illness," I finished for her. She nodded. "I suspected poisoning early on, but the particular agent used was sophisticated, beyond my ability to counteract." Regret tinged her voice. "Mr. Russo brought in specialists from Europe, but it was already too late." I stopped walking, steadying myself against a stone bench. He really did try to save him. Mr. Russo exhausted every resource, called in every favor. Dr. Moretti's gaze was direct. I've never seen him so affected. Before I could respond, movement at the edge of the garden caught my attention. Russo emerged from a side door of the main house, accompanied by two men in suits. Even from a distance, the air of authority surrounding him was palpable. The men listened intently as he spoke, nodding occasionally. One passed him a folder, which he reviewed with focused attention. As if sensing my gaze, he looked up, his eyes finding mine across the distance. Something flickered in his expression. Concern, perhaps, or something else I couldn't name. He said something to the men, who retreated into the house, then started toward us. "Dr. Moretti," he greeted with a nod. "Eleanor, you look better." I was suddenly acutely aware of my appearance. Unwashed hair pulled into a messy bun, borrowed clothes hanging loose on my frame, face pale from confinement. "Fresh air helps," I replied, aiming for a neutral tone. "Indeed." His gaze lingered on me a moment too long. "Dr. Moretti, may I have a word with Eleanor? Privately." The doctor hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes only. She shouldn't overexert herself. After she retreated to a respectful distance, Russo gestured to the bench. "Shall we?" I sat, grateful for the support. Up close, I noticed subtle signs of strain in his appearance. The shadow of stubble along his jaw, a slight tightness around his eyes. "There have been developments," he said without preamble. "Kane's men have been making inquiries about you, showing your photograph in establishments near the Kingsley." Fear coiled in my stomach. "How did they get my photo?" "Your employee ID, most likely, or social media, though you maintain minimal presence there." He sounded almost approving of my digital discretion. "What does it mean?" "It means they're confirming you were the intended target." Russo's voice remained calm, but I detected an undercurrent of controlled anger. "Which makes our next steps clearer." "Our next steps?" "You can't return to your former life, Eleanor. Not now, perhaps not ever." His directness was both terrifying and strangely comforting. No platitudes, no false reassurances. "You expect me to just disappear? Live here indefinitely as your ward?" I gestured to the imposing house. "In your fortress?" "It would be the safest option, yes." His expression softened almost imperceptibly, "though I understand it's not what you would choose. What I would choose is to go back 2 weeks and cross at a different intersection," I said bitterly. "Or better yet, to have known the truth about my father from the beginning." Russo was quiet for a moment. "Thomas believed ignorance would protect you." I disagreed with his approach, but respected his wishes. "And now?" "Now I believe knowledge is your best defense." He shifted to face me more directly. "Your father kept a separate apartment in the city, registered under an alias, a place even I wasn't meant to know about. My breath caught. How did you find it? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Thomas was careful, but I employ people who specialize in finding what doesn't want to be found. When did you discover it? After his death. I had the contents secured but left everything untouched. His gaze was steady. I believe he maintained records there. Information that might explain why Kane considers you valuable enough to eliminate. Hope flared briefly. You think there might be answers? Possibly. Or more questions. He studied me with those dark, unreadable eyes. Are you strong enough for either? It wasn't really a question. Whatever my physical condition, I needed answers more than safety. When can we go? Tomorrow evening. My security team is preparing. He stood, offering his hand to help me up. Dr. Moretti believes you can manage the trip, but you'll need to follow her instructions precisely today. I hesitated before taking his hand. His palm was warm, grip firm, but gentle, the hand of someone conscious of their strength. For a brief moment, I felt the calluses on his fingertips, incongruous with his polished appearance. Thank you, I said as he released me. For giving me a choice this time, something like surprise flickered across his features. You're not a prisoner here, Eleanor, despite appearances, aren't I? Would your men let me walk through that gate? I gestured toward the distant entrance. They would. Once. His honesty was brutal. And then they would follow at a distance until Kane's men found you. After that... He left the implication hanging. After that, they'd recover my body, I finished. Russo didn't contradict me. Your father had enemies, powerful ones. The only reason they didn't come for you sooner is because most believed Thomas had nothing worth taking. His gaze intensified. Kane apparently thinks otherwise. That night, sleep eluded me again. I stood by the French doors, watching moonlight silver the garden. Beyond the manicured grounds, the darkness concealed an unseen perimeter of armed men, some protecting me, others potentially hunting me. Two sides of an underground war I never knew existed. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Too late for Dr. Moretti's rounds. Too hesitant for security. Come in, I called, drawing the robe tighter around me. The door opened to reveal a young woman with copper hair, pulled back in a practical braid. She carried a tray with tea and what appeared to be homemade cookies. Ms. Walsh, I'm Sophia, Mr. Russo's housekeeper. Her smile was genuine, lacking the cautious deference of the other staff. I thought you might like something to help you sleep. Thank you, but I don't need chamomile with lavender and a touch of honey. She set the tray on the bedside table. And snickerdoodles. My grandmother's recipe. The simple kindness after days of clinical care nearly undid me. That's very thoughtful. Sophia poured the tea, her movements graceful and practiced. Mr. Russo mentioned you'll be traveling tomorrow. I've taken the liberty of preparing some clothes. She gestured to the closet. Nothing fancy, just practical items that should fit. Mr. Russo discusses my plans with the household staff. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. She handed me the teacup, unfazed by my tone. Mr. Russo discusses very little with anyone, but I've worked for him since I was 18. You learn to anticipate. I accepted the cup, inhaling the soothing aroma. How long have you known him? All my life, in a way. My father was his driver until he retired. She selected a cookie from the plate, offering it to me. Mr. Russo paid for my college education. Business management. I took the cookie, surprised. That seems unexpectedly generous. Sophia's smile turned wry. Mr. Russo values loyalty and competence above all else. He rewards both handsomely. She glanced around the room. Is there anything else you need before tomorrow? Something in her straightforward manner invited confidence. Information would be nice. Everyone here treats me like I'm made of glass. She considered me for a long moment. You're the first person Mr. Russo has ever brought to this house who wasn't either family or business. That makes you something of a mystery to the staff. I'm a mystery to myself these days, I murmured. If it helps, he's different around you. Sophia adjusted the tea tray, avoiding my gaze. More present. Usually he's here but not here, if you understand. I don't, she sighed. Mr. Russo carries many responsibilities. It creates a distance most can't bridge. She moved toward the door. Try to rest, Ms. Walsh. Tomorrow will be demanding. After she left, I sipped the tea, savoring its gentle warmth. Sophia's words echoed in my mind. The first person who wasn't family or business. What was I then? An obligation? A promise kept? The next evening, dressed in clothes Sophia had provided, dark jeans, a gray sweater, and a black leather jacket that fit suspiciously well. I waited by the main entrance. Dr. Moretti had given me a final examination and reluctantly declared me fit for limited travel, though not without providing Russo with a detailed list of restrictions and medications. He appeared precisely at 7, wearing a charcoal suit that somehow managed to look both elegant and practical. 2 men flanked him. One I recognized as the guard from the hospital, the other unfamiliar, but with the same vigilant demeanor. Eleanor. Russo's gaze swept over me, clinical and assessing. Are you certain you feel strong enough? I'm fine, I assured him, ignoring the dull ache in my side. Let's go. Outside, 3 identical black SUVs idled in the circular drive. Russo guided me to the middle vehicle, his hand hovering near the small of my back without quite touching me, close enough to assist if needed, distant enough to respect boundaries. Marco will drive, he said, indicating the unfamiliar guard who slid behind the wheel. Paolo will follow in the second vehicle with additional security. The third is a decoy. The convoy moved swiftly through the night, taking a circuitous route back toward the city. I watched the passing landscape transform from manicured estates to suburban developments to the familiar urban sprawl. Beside me, Russo maintained a watchful silence, occasionally checking his phone or exchanging brief words with Marco in Italian. How did you meet my father? I asked, breaking the quiet as we crossed the bridge into Manhattan. Russo considered the question, his profile sharp against the city lights. Belgrade, 1999. I was expanding operations into Eastern Europe. Thomas was working private security for a diplomat. A faint smile touched his lips. He saved my life during an ambush, shot 2 men while simultaneously pulling me behind cover. The image of my gentle father, the man who refused to even own a gun in our house, gunning down attackers, was jarring. You offered him a job after that? Eventually, Russo turned to face me. First, I had him investigated thoroughly. Thomas wasn't easily bought. He had principles. Then why did he work for you? The question had been burning inside me for days. Protection. Russo's gaze was steady. For you. Your mother had recently died. He had a young daughter to support alone. I offered security, stability. By having him do what exactly? Russo's expression remained neutral. Your father never killed for me, if that's your concern. He was my security consultant in truth, assessed vulnerabilities, planned protective measures, vetted personnel. He had a unique talent for identifying threats before they materialized. It was strange how relief could coexist with disillusionment. My father hadn't been an assassin, but he had willingly worked for a criminal enterprise, protected it, enabled it. We're approaching the location, Marco announced, breaking into my thoughts. Perimeter looks clear. The SUV slowed, turning down a narrow side street in an older neighborhood I didn't immediately recognize. The buildings here were pre-war, dignified despite signs of age. We stopped before a nondescript brownstone with darkened windows. Stay here until we secure the entrance, Russo instructed, his tone shifting to something harder, more commanding. He exchanged a few rapid words with Marco in Italian before they both exited the vehicle. I watched through the tinted window as Russo and Marco approached the building with practiced caution. Paolo and 2 other men emerged from the following SUV, taking positions that gave them sightlines in all directions. The choreography spoke of years of experience, of countless similar situations. This was Alessio Russo in his element, not the polished businessman who had visited my hospital room, but something more primal. A predator moving through familiar hunting grounds. 5 minutes later, Marco returned, opening my door. All clear, Ms. Walsh. The building's entrance hall was dimly lit and smelled faintly of old wood and polish. A narrow staircase led upward, worn in the middle from decades of footsteps. Russo waited at the bottom, keys in hand. 3rd floor, he said, gesturing for me to precede him. "Can you manage the stairs?" I nodded, determined not to show weakness. The climb was harder than I'd anticipated, each step pulling at my healing incision. By the second landing, I was breathless, pain radiating through my abdomen. A warm hand at my elbow steadied me. "Take a moment," Russo said quietly. Not an order, but not quite a suggestion either. "I'm fine," I insisted, but leaned against the wall nonetheless. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Stubbornness is an admirable trait in appropriate circumstances. This isn't one of them," says the man who probably never admitted weakness in his life, I countered. Something like amusement flickered across his features. On the contrary, acknowledging limitations is essential for survival in my world. When we reached the third floor, Russo unlocked a heavy door reinforced with what appeared to be multiple security systems. The apartment beyond was modest but meticulously maintained. A small living area with worn but quality furniture, a kitchenette, and 2 doors leading to what I presumed were a bedroom and bathroom. "This was his safe house," Russo explained, securing the door behind us. "Purchased under the name William Stevens 15 years ago. Even my most thorough accountants never traced it." The space felt frozen in time, as if my father might walk through the door at any moment. A coffee mug still sat on the counter. A jacket, one I recognized, hung by the door. Books lined shelves along one wall, their spines showing my father's eclectic tastes. "How often did he come here?" I asked, running my fingers along the back of his favorite reading chair. "Increasingly, in his final years." Russo moved to the bookshelf, scanning the titles. "After your mother died, he maintained 2 separate lives more strictly. Thomas Walsh, the devoted father. William Stevens, my lieutenant." I picked up a framed photograph from a side table. Me at my high school graduation, beaming between my parents. Mom, already sick, but smiling bravely. Dad, his arm around my shoulders, proud and protective. Was anything in my life real? The question escaped before I could stop it. Russo turned, his expression softening. "His love for you was real, Eleanor. Everything he did, the secrets, the double life, was to give you the chance he never had, a life untouched by this world. Fat lot of good it did in the end," I said bitterly, setting down the photo. "He couldn't have anticipated Kane connecting you to him after so much time." Russo moved to a painting on the far wall, a simple landscape I recognized from our old house. Or perhaps he did, and left contingencies. With careful movements, he removed the painting, revealing a wall safe. The combination would be something significant to him, something he wouldn't forget but others wouldn't guess. I approached, studying the dial. 6 digits. "Try 071492, I suggested. "My birthday." Russo entered the numbers. The safe remained locked. "His own birthday?" he suggested. I shook my head. He never celebrated it, said it was just another day, another mystery to add to the growing list. "Your mother's birthday, perhaps? April 3rd, 1970. I did the mental calculation. 040370. This time, the safe clicked open. Inside were several items: a thick envelope, a small leather-bound book, a USB drive, and a metal box. Russo removed them carefully, placing them on the nearby desk. "These should be examined somewhere secure," he said. "We shouldn't linger here." As he spoke, his phone vibrated. The message he read made his expression harden. "We need to leave. Now." "What's wrong?" "Security breach at the north perimeter." He was already gathering the items from the safe, moving with controlled urgency. Could be coincidence. Could be we were followed. Fear spiked through me. Kane's men. Possibly. Paolo is bringing the vehicles around to the back exit. He handed me the leather book. "Take this. Everything else I'll secure." The book was my father's journal, the one Russo had mentioned. I clutched it tightly as he guided me back to the apartment door, his body language shifting to heightened alertness. Marco met us in the hallway, hand inside his jacket where I presumed a weapon waited. 2 unidentified vehicles circling the block boss. No visual on occupants. "Exit strategy Bravo," Russo directed, his voice calm but commanding. "Eleanor stays between us." The next moments were a blur of controlled movement. Down the back stairs, through a service entrance, into a narrow alley where the SUVs waited, engines running. Russo kept one hand at my back, the other hidden beneath his jacket. We were halfway to the vehicles when the first shot cracked through the night. "Down!" Russo shouted, simultaneously pulling me behind a dumpster and drawing a pistol in one fluid motion. More shots followed. The sharp report of handguns, the deeper bark of something larger. Marco returned fire, providing cover as Paolo and the other guards emerged from the vehicles, weapons drawn. "Stay down," Russo ordered, his body positioned between me and the direction of the attack. "When I say move, run straight to the second vehicle. Don't stop. Don't look back." Terror had frozen my limbs. "I can't." "You can." His eyes locked with mine, fierce with determination. "Your father wouldn't surrender, neither will you." The exchange of gunfire intensified. Through the chaos, I heard shouted orders in Italian, the scuff of boots on pavement, a cry of pain. "Now," Russo commanded, pulling me up and propelling me forward while simultaneously firing 2 precise shots. I ran, each step sending pain through my healing wound, each breath burning in my lungs. The SUV's door opened as I approached, Paolo's hand extending to pull me inside. Behind me, I heard Russo's steady footsteps, the sound of his controlled breathing. Then a new volley of shots, a grunt of pain that wasn't from me, and the sickening sound of a body hitting pavement. I turned, horrified, to see Russo on one knee, his left shoulder darkening with blood, still returning fire with his right hand. 20 feet separated us, an impossible distance under the circumstances. "Go!" he shouted at Paolo, who had started toward him. "Get her out! Primary objective!" Paolo hesitated only a fraction of a second before pulling me into the vehicle. "Drive!" he ordered the man behind the wheel. "No, we can't leave him!" I struggled against Paolo's iron grip as the SUV lurched forward. Through the rear window, I watched Russo take cover behind a concrete barrier, Marco and another guard converging on his position. More of Kane's men appeared at the alley entrance, weapons raised. "He's hit. We have to help him," I pleaded as we accelerated away. "Mr. Russo gave direct orders," Paolo said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "Your safety is the priority. Always." The SUV sped through back streets, taking seemingly random turns to evade potential pursuit. I clutched my father's journal to my chest, trembling with shock and fear. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, my voice barely audible. "Contingency location," Paolo replied, checking his phone for messages. "Secondary safe house in New Jersey." "What about Russo?" Paolo's expression remained stoic, but something in his eyes betrayed concern. "Mr. Russo has survived worse. Marco will get him to Dr. Moretti." The ride passed in tense silence. I stared at my father's journal, running my fingers over the worn leather. Inside might be answers, explanations, perhaps even the reason Kane wanted me dead. But at what cost? Russo was injured, possibly critically because of me. Because of secrets my father had kept. The safe house was an unassuming suburban home with a meticulously maintained lawn, the kind of place that drew no attention. 2 guards I hadn't seen before met us at the garage entrance, ushering me quickly inside. "Secure the perimeter," Paolo instructed them. "No one enters or leaves without verification code Lima 7 Echo." The interior was sparsely furnished but comfortable. Paolo led me to a bedroom, checking closets and windows, before apparently satisfying himself that it was secure. "Try to rest," he said, his professional demeanor softening slightly. "There are clothes in the dresser. Bathroom through that door. Kitchen is stocked if you're hungry. What about Russo? Is there any news?" Paolo checked his phone again. "Marco reports they're en route to a secure medical facility. That's all I know." After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed, still clutching the journal. Part of me wanted to fling it away, reject all the secrets and dangers it represented, but a stronger impulse, the need to understand, to finally know the truth, won out. With trembling fingers, I opened to the first page. My father's handwriting, neat, precise capitals that had always reminded me of architectural drawings, filled the first page. "For Eleanor, when the time comes. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and Alessio has determined you need the truth. Trust him, Ellie. He's a complicated man with a dangerous life, but his word is unbreakable." Tears blurred my vision. I blinked them away, determined to read on. The journal detailed my father's double life in meticulous chronology. His chance meeting with Russo in Belgrade. The job offer that came months later, when medical bills for my mother's first cancer diagnosis had left us nearly bankrupt. His initial reluctance, followed by pragmatic acceptance of what the role could provide: financial security, the best medical care for Mom, a future for me. "I've made a deal with the devil," he wrote, but a devil with his own moral code. Russo never asked me to cross the lines I drew. He respects boundaries, honors agreements. In his world, that's rare. I read through the night, absorbing revelations that transformed my understanding of the man who raised me. My father had been Russo's security chief, his confidant, his most trusted advisor. He had witnessed violence but rarely participated in it, had moved in circles of power I couldn't imagine, had kept meticulous records of every transaction, every meeting, every potential threat, including Victor Kane. Kane suspects something about the Santiago shipment. His men have been asking questions along the docks. If they discover the manifest discrepancy, the whole operation is compromised. Worse, they might trace it back to Elena. Elena. The name appeared repeatedly in later entries, always with concern, sometimes with unmistakable affection. Elena believes she's covered her tracks, but she underestimates Kane's resources. If he discovers her role as our informant, her life expectancy drops to days, perhaps hours. I've arranged new identity documents, but she refuses to leave until the evidence is secured. The final entries, dated just weeks before his diagnosis, grew increasingly urgent. Elena's missing. 3 days without contact. Kane's men were seen at her apartment. Found Elena's backup drive hidden exactly where she said. Contents encrypted. No time to examine now. Kane's surveillance has increased. Symptoms started today. Fatigue, nausea. Could be nothing. Could be something. Have secured Elena's package where only Ellie might find it someday, if necessary. God forgive me for involving my daughter, even unknowingly. The last entry chilled me to the bone. Dr. Moretti confirmed what I suspected. Radiation poisoning, deliberate exposure. Kane's signature method for traitors and informants. 6 months at most. Haven't told Alessio yet. He'll burn the world to find who did this. Need to protect Ellie first. She must never know this world exists. Final arrangements made. House in her name. Accounts hidden where Kane won't look. Left just enough breadcrumbs that if someday she needs Alessio, he'll find her. Pray that day never comes. I closed the journal, my hands trembling. My father had been murdered, slowly, painfully, and had spent his final months protecting me rather than seeking justice. Had hidden evidence that could destroy his killer. Evidence that somehow involved me. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Paolo stood there, his expression somber. "There's a secure call for you," he said. "Mr. Russo." I followed him to a study where a laptop sat open on a desk. The video feed showed a dimly lit room, and there was Russo, his shoulder heavily bandaged, face drawn with pain, but eyes alert. "Eleanor." His voice was rougher than usual. "You're safe?" "Yes. But you're hurt." He dismissed my concern with a slight gesture. "Superficial. What did you find in Thomas's journal?" I hesitated, not yet ready to share my father's most personal thoughts. He mentions someone named Elena. Says she was an informant against Kane, that she had evidence hidden somewhere only I would find. Russo's expression sharpened with interest. Elena Varga. She was Kane's bookkeeper until she discovered he was trafficking people, not just goods. She came to your father with evidence. Financial records, shipping manifests, client lists. The Santiago shipment? A cargo vessel carrying both illegal weapons and human cargo. Your father helped Elena document everything. Planned to use it as leverage to shut down Kane's operation. His jaw tightened. Then Elena disappeared, and your father fell ill shortly after. He knew he was poisoned, I said quietly. Knew it was Kane. Russo's gaze was steady through the screen. Yes. By the time he told me, it was too late for treatment, too late for anything but arrangements. He said he hid Elena's evidence where only I might find it. I struggled to make sense of it, but that's impossible. I knew nothing about his work, his connections. Think, Eleanor. A place only you would know to look. Somewhere connected to your shared history. Not his professional life. I closed my eyes, mentally walking through our old house. Dad's study, already searched by Russo's men, the family photo albums, the storage boxes in the attic. The beach house, I whispered, eyes flying open. Cape May. We spent every summer there until Mom got sick. Dad kept the property, but we never went back after she died. Russo nodded slowly. It's not in any of his financial records. Not under Thomas Walsh or any aliases we've identified. It belonged to my mother's family. She inherited it from her grandparents. A memory surfaced. There's a hidden compartment in the library floor, an old smuggler's hole from Prohibition days. We used it for a time capsule when I was 10. Russo was already issuing orders to someone off-screen. We'll secure the location immediately. I need to go there. I leaned closer to the camera. If it's where he hid Elena's evidence, it will be coded or protected somehow. Something only I would understand. His expression hardened. Out of the question. Kane's men nearly killed us both tonight. And they'll try again whether I'm here or there, I countered. At least at the beach house, I might find what they're after, what got my father killed. A long silence stretched between us as Russo weighed my words. 24 hours, he finally said. My team secures the property first. Full perimeter surveillance. You arrive only when I personally confirm it's safe. And you? I asked, unable to stop myself. Will you be there? Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps at my concern. I'll be there. Morning brought new clothes, a secured vehicle, and a 4-man security detail for the drive to Cape May. Paolo remained at my side, vigilant and silent, as we traveled south along the coast. The beach house appeared exactly as I remembered. A weathered Victorian with blue shutters and a wide porch facing the ocean. Late October had emptied the neighboring properties, leaving our arrival unobserved except by Russo's men, who had established positions around the perimeter. I paused at the front gate, memories washing over me, Mom's laughter from the kitchen, Dad teaching me to fish off the small dock. Countless summer days that felt eternal in their simplicity. Ms. Walsh? Paolo prompted gently. We should move inside. The interior smelled of disuse and salt air. Sheets draped the furniture, and a fine layer of dust covered surfaces. But otherwise, it remained frozen in time, a museum to my childhood. I moved directly to the small library at the back of the house. The hidden compartment was concealed beneath a built-in window seat, its existence betrayed only by a nearly invisible seam in the floorboards. It took both Paolo and me to shift the heavy seat, revealing the small trapdoor beneath. Allow me, Paolo said, drawing a flashlight and checking the space for traps or surprises before nodding. Appears clear. The compartment was deeper than I remembered, extending under the floor. At the bottom sat a metal lockbox, not the childish time capsule we'd buried, but something far more secure. A combination lock secured it, with letters rather than numbers. It needs a password, I said, studying the 5 dials. Paolo reached for his phone. I'll contact Mr. Russo for instructions. No need. I turned the dials carefully. ELLIE, my childhood nickname, used only by my parents. The box opened with a soft click. Inside lay a leather portfolio, a USB drive sealed in plastic, and an envelope with my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. I removed them carefully, setting them on the window seat. We should take these directly to Mr. Russo, Paolo suggested. I shook my head. First, I need to understand what my father died protecting. The leather portfolio contained financial records, ledgers documenting transactions, bank transfers, shell companies. Names, dates, amounts, all meticulous in their detail. The human trafficking operation was laid bare in cold numbers, each representing lives bought and sold. The USB drive would need proper examination, but the letter, that was meant for me alone. I broke the seal, unfolding pages of graceful feminine handwriting. Eleanor, my name is Elena Varga. You don't know me, but I knew your father well. He was a good man in a world of wolves, and he spoke of you often. If you're reading this, both your father and I are likely dead. The evidence accompanying this letter documents Victor Kane's criminal empire, particularly his human trafficking operation. Your father helped me gather this information at great personal risk, believing it could dismantle Kane's network permanently. Thomas kept you separate from his professional life, but he feared that if anything happened to him, Kane might eventually connect you to this evidence. That fear has likely come to pass if you found this letter. Trust Alessio Russo. Your father did, with his life and with yours. Russo is dangerous, yes, but honorable in his own way. He operates by a code that Kane could never understand. The encryption key for the digital files is your birthday, followed by your mother's maiden name. The original documents are in a safety deposit box at First Maritime Bank, Cape May Branch, box the 2047. The key is taped beneath this letter. I'm sorry to place this burden on your shoulders. Your father wanted nothing more than to keep you safe from this world. With regret and hope, Elena Varga. A small key was indeed taped to the back of the final page. I removed it carefully, turning it over in my palm. We need to go to First Maritime Bank, I told Paolo. His expression remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed concern. Mr. Russo instructed us to return directly once we secured any evidence. This isn't complete without what's in that safety deposit box. I met his gaze steadily. My father died protecting this information. I need to finish what he started. After a moment's hesitation, Paolo nodded. The bank first, then straight to the rendezvous point. No deviations. An hour later, we stood in a private viewing room at First Maritime Bank. The contents of box Thubber 247 spread before us. Photographs documenting Kane's operation, shipping manifests, passport copies of trafficking victims, and most damning of all, a ledger of payoffs to officials who enabled the enterprise. This is enough to destroy him, Paolo murmured, his professional detachment slipping for a moment. It's what got my father killed, I said, gathering everything into the secure case Paolo had brought. Let's make it count. The rendezvous point was a private airstrip 20 miles inland. As our vehicle approached, I saw the sleek shape of a private jet waiting on the tarmac, and standing beside it, despite his injury, was Russo. He looked pale but composed, his left arm in a sling beneath his suit jacket. His eyes tracked our approach with predatory focus, tension visible in his stance until he confirmed it was indeed us. You found it, he said as I approached, gaze dropping to the case in my hand. Everything Elena and my father compiled against Kane. I passed him the case, enough to dismantle his operation permanently. Russo's hand brushed mine as he took the case. Your father would be proud of your courage today. What happens now? I asked. Now we use this information precisely as Thomas intended. His expression was resolute. Kane's empire falls piece by piece. His political protection evaporates, his assets freeze, his network scatters. And me? Do I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, living in your fortress? Russo studied me for a long moment. That depends on you, Eleanor. There are options. What options? Witness protection, new identity, new location, government resources to keep you hidden. His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. But, I prompted, sensing the unspoken alternative. Or you stay under my protection. Something shifted in his gaze, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. Not as a prisoner or an obligation, but as someone under my personal guardianship. The implication hung between us. Not quite an offer, not quite a request. Is that what my father would have wanted? I asked softly. Thomas wanted you safe, above all else. A faint smile touched his lips. But he also raised a daughter with his own stubborn integrity. He would respect whatever choice you make. The jet engines began spinning up, their steady hum filling the silence between us. I need time to decide, I finally said. Russo nodded. Time you shall have, but first, we eliminate the immediate threat. He gestured to the waiting aircraft. 3 hours to Washington. Justice Department officials are expecting this evidence. As we boarded the jet, I realized I was crossing a threshold. Not just physically, but into a world my father had tried to keep separate from mine, a world of shadows and power, danger and hard choices. Yet somehow, with Russo beside me, steady despite his injury, I felt a strange sense of clarity. My father had navigated this world while maintaining his core principles. Perhaps I could find my own path through it as well. As the jet lifted off, carrying us toward justice for my father and for Elena. I made my decision. Not witness protection and a lifetime of running, not hiding behind Russo's walls and guards. Something different. A third path, forged from my father's courage and my own determination. I would use this painful inheritance, knowledge, connections, resources, to ensure no one else suffered as the victims in those files had. I know what I want to do, I told Russo, as we leveled off above the clouds. His dark eyes met mine, watchful and surprisingly gentle. And what is that, Eleanor? Continue their work. My father's, Elena's. Help dismantle operations like Kane's for good. I straightened in my seat. I have skills, a finance degree I've never fully used, knowledge of 2 worlds now. For the first time since I'd met him, Russo looked genuinely surprised. Then, slowly, his expression transformed with something that might have been pride. It won't be safe, he warned, though I could tell the idea had taken root. Nothing worth doing ever is. I echoed words my father had often said. But I won't do it alone. His hand found mine across the narrow aisle, warm and strong, not demanding, not controlling, supporting. No, he agreed softly, not alone. In that moment, as we flew toward whatever future awaited us, I felt my father's presence more strongly than I had since his death, not approving exactly, but understanding. He had made his choices to protect me. Now I would make mine to honor him, and perhaps, in time, to discover who Alessio Russo truly was beneath the armor he wore so well.